Hi guys, welcome to Apple One. In this video, we're going to be talking about solving quadratic equations by factoring. So let's take our first example. For our first example, let's solve the equation x squared plus 7x plus 10 is equal to 0. So the first thing we do is we have to multiply the coefficient of x squared. As we can see, our coefficient is 1 and the coefficient and our constant 10. So we have to multiply the coefficient of x squared 1 and our constant 10, which will give us 10. Next, we have to look for two numbers m and n, such that m multiplied by n will give us our number 10 and m plus n will give us the coefficient of x here, 7. So to look for those two numbers, we have to make a list. So we bring this 10 down and then we make list of numbers that can satisfy our two requirements. We'll start with 1. 1 and 10, they multiply to give 10. We can also use minus 1, minus 10, 5 and 2, minus 5 and minus 2. So these are all the numbers that can satisfy our first requirement. So we now have to look for a set of numbers that will satisfy our second requirement, numbers which will add up to 7. So after analyzing this list, we can see that the only two numbers that satisfy these two requirements are 5 and 2. Or we can say 5x and 2x, because we will replace something in our equation with 5x and 2x. So having found our two numbers, let's continue solving. So here will be x squared plus, we will replace our 7x here with 5x and 2x. So we say plus 5x plus 2x plus 10 is equal to 0. So next, we have to factorize our equation, but we'll factorize by grouping. We group the first two terms, x squared plus 5x, and the last two terms, 2x plus 10. So factorizing by grouping, we can bring out x here, and here will be x plus 5. And for 2x plus 10, we can bring out 2, and here will be x plus 5 is equal to 0. So we have that x plus 5 times x plus 2 is equal to 0. So further simplifying our equation, we have x plus 5 is equal to 0 and x plus 2 is equal to 0. So for this equation, we have x is equal to minus 5, and for this equation, we have x is equal to minus 2. So we can say, therefore, our answer x we've been looking for, or our answers rather, because in a quadratic equation, we always have two solutions. So we say x is equal to minus 5 and minus 2, because they both satisfy our equation. Because they both satisfy our equation. So let's take another example. So for this example, let's do the equation x squared minus 8x plus 15 is equal to 0. So as I've previously said, the first thing we do is we multiply the coefficient of our x squared and the constant 15. So 1 times 15 is equal to 15. Next, we have to look for our two numbers m and n such that m multiplied by n will give us our number here 15, and m plus n will give us our coefficient of x here minus 8. So to find these two numbers, we have to make a list. Always start with 1. We can have 1 and 15 here. We can have minus 1 and minus 15. We can have minus 3 and minus 5. We can have 3 and 5 because they all multiply to give the number 15. So we have satisfied our first requirement. To satisfy our second requirement, we need to look for two numbers to add up to minus 8. And looking at our list, we'll see that the only two numbers that can give us minus 8 is minus 3 and minus 5. Or we can say minus 3x minus 5x, because we are going to replace minus 8x in our equation with these minus 3x and minus 5x. So now let's complete our equation. We have x squared, we have to replace this, minus 5x minus 3x plus 15 is equal to 0. Now factorizing by grouping, we group these two, first two and the last two together. So factorizing, we have x minus 5. We can bring out minus 3 here, minus 3, and here will be x minus 5 is equal to 0. So we have that x minus 5 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. So further simplifying our equation, we have x minus 5 is equal to 0, and here we have x minus 3 is equal to 0. Here will give us x is equal to 5, and here will give us x is equal to 3. So we can say, therefore, our x is equal to 5 and 3. So these are our solutions for our quadratic equation. So let's take another example. For our next example, we are to solve the equation x squared minus x minus 20 is equal to 0. So the first thing we do is we have to multiply the coefficient of x squared and our constant minus 20. So 1 times minus 20 is equal to minus 20. Next, we have to look for two numbers m and n such that m multiplied by n is equal to minus 20, and m plus n is equal to our coefficient of x here, minus 1. So we make our list again. We have minus 20. Make our list. We have 1 minus 20. We can also have 2 minus 10, and we can also have 4 minus 5, 5 minus 4. So these are the numbers that can satisfy our first requirement. So now we have to satisfy our first requirement. That is, the two numbers have to sum up to minus 1. So looking at our equation, we have seen, our list, we have seen that only the two numbers minus 4 and minus 5 sum up to minus 1. So therefore, our two numbers are 4 and minus 5, which we can also write as 4x and minus 5x, because we will have to replace this in our equation with 4x minus 5x. So now let's continue solving our quadratic equation. We have x squared. Now we have to replace minus x with plus 4x minus 5x minus 20 is equal to 0. So now factorizing by grouping the first two and the last two together, factorizing x squared plus 4x, right? We have x plus 4 minus 5 can come out here, and we have x plus 4 is equal to 0. So we have that x minus 5 times x plus 4 is equal to 0. So further simplifying our equation, we have that x minus 5 is equal to 0, x plus 4 is equal to 0. So here will give us x is equal to 5, and here will give us x is equal to minus 4. So therefore, we have that our answer x is equal to 5 and minus 4. So these are our solutions for this equation. 5 and minus 4 satisfy the requirement, satisfy our equation. These are our solutions. So let's take our last example, our last but not the least. For our last example, let's solve the equation 2x squared plus 3x minus 9 is equal to 0. Please guys, feel free to pause the video and attempt this question. So assuming that you have attempted the question, let's solve the equation together. So the first thing we do is we have to multiply our coefficients of x squared and our constant minus 9. So we do 2 times minus 9 will give us minus 18. Next, we have to look for two numbers m and n to satisfy our requirements as we may have it. So looking for these two numbers, we make a list of numbers which can satisfy our requirements. Okay, sorry. This can fit. 6 times 3 is 18, not minus 18. So we bring this upwards instead. So looking at our numbers, we have that our two numbers to satisfy our equations, our two requirements are 6 and minus 3. And we can say this is 6x minus 3x. So continuing our equation, we have 2x squared. We'll replace this 3x with plus 6x minus 3x minus 9 is equal to 0. Next, we factorize by grouping. Factorizing by grouping, we have 2x, x plus 3, have minus 3, x plus 3 is equal to 0. So we have 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Oh, sorry. We have two x minus 3 times x plus 3 is equal to 0. So further simplifying our equation, we have 2x minus 3 is equal to 0 on one side and x plus 3 is equal to 0 on the other side. So simplifying this equation, we have 2x is equal to 3, x is equal to 3 over 2. So simplifying our second equation, we have x is equal to minus 3. So this is it. We have gotten our solutions. We can say therefore x is equal to 3 over 2 and minus 3. So these are our solutions. And by the way, I also want to add this. It's just like a bonus tip. You can also verify whether your equations are correct by using the formula method to solve your equation to check whether it will correlate with your answer you got. So let's try it here. Let's use the formula method to check whether our values are correct. So our formula method, or we can also say the almighty formula, x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And as we can see from our equation, a is equal to 2, b is equal to 3, and c is equal to negative 9. So we'll substitute a, b, and c into our equations. So we'll have x is equal to minus 3 plus or minus the square root of b squared, right? That is 9 minus 4ac. 4ac is 4 times 2 times minus 9. That is 4 times 2, 8. That is minus 72. So minus 72 all over 2a. 2a will give us 4. So x is equal to minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 72 will give us 81 over 4. So here we have x is equal to minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 81 will give us 9 over 4. So we have x is equal to minus 3 plus 9 over 4 on one side, and x is equal to minus 3 minus 9 over 4 on the other side. So simplifying, we have, simplifying this one first, we have minus 3 plus 9 will give us 6. 6 over 4, x is equal to 6 over 4, which is equal to 3 over 2. And for our second side, we have minus 3 minus 9, which is minus 12 over 4. This will give us minus 3. And x is equal to minus 3. And as we know, using the factoring method, we got our answers as minus 3 and 3 over 2. So this is a way to verify whether your equation is correct or not by using another method to solve and checking whether you get the same answers.